vlog. Today we are answering another question about craniosynostosis as we kind of getting toward the end of Craniofacial Acceptance Month here now in September. And today's question we are answering is, what concerns are there in the cranio community?
The reason we're doing these videos, the reason that we write like we write, is to raise awareness. The cranio community focuses its efforts often every single September for Craniofacial Acceptance Month and Craniosynostosis Awareness Month. It's a good time to just get the word out there about the numbers, the facts, the figures, the pictures, the names, the words, basically a lot of the things that we're doing, as well as a lot of things that we've been sharing on our Facebook page. But one of the biggest ways that we have found to help raise awareness is actually, again, this is not a plug, this is not something we've been asked to do, but we're avid readers, and so when we find books that we like, we want to share that with you. We came across this book by Case Johnston called Beyond the Grip of Craniosynostosis. Now, I've read this book 5 times. Katie read this a couple times. The first time was in a matter of a couple of days, and it immediately reached out to us. The reason being that this book does an amazing job of telling from different interviews and different points of view what life with craniosynostosis is like, and what watching one of your children go through the diagnosis and surgery and recovery for craniosynostosis is like. In fact, we immediately started buying multiple copies, and I handed some out to friends and family to start a process. And I said, look, read the book. If you like it, pass it on to somebody else. You know, if you want your own copy, buy your own copy. But if you like it, I want you to pass it on. And I already know for a fact that multiple copies have been purchased as they become available. You can find that book on Amazon or wherever any fine book is sold. I highly recommend it. It's a very fast read. It is full of so much emotion and so much knowledge that it might leave you with your head spinning. But that's one of the biggest ways I have found to raise awareness, is not just by doing these videos, but by passing on information from books or from websites. But the cranio community really just needs to continue to raise awareness. I don't think it just needs to be September. We spend our entire year talking about cranio, and September is fine and dandy. It's a great focal point to have, but there's so much more that can be done throughout the year.
So our first concern was talking about the awareness of cranio within families, and our second concern would be education within the medical community. It is still very, very common that I hear from moms especially, but moms and dads, that they'll have a concern with their baby, they take them into their pediatrician, and the pediatrician doesn't have the knowledge of craniosynostosis, not enough to even really understand what it is. They tend to understand it more in relation to syndromes. So if there are additional factors like digits that are either fused or extra toes, extra fingers, things that are kind of in addition to maybe a skull fusion, then they tend to have that red flag trigger. But there are still so many pediatricians that just the simple diagnosis of craniosynostosis is not really even aware of. It's not really on their radar. And so most of them are still telling moms that, oh, their child will grow out of it. And when in fact they don't. It gets worse, and usually these parents end up seeking a second, third, fourth opinion until there is a pediatrician who is willing to listen and refer them to that specialist, that craniofacial surgeon. And so a big concern that we are hoping to raise awareness is within the medical community.
There's also something really strange that happens more in the cranio community than anywhere else that I could possibly imagine. When you have something that affects 1 out of every 2,500 live births in the country that you live in, you expect there to be a huge resounding community full of decades and decades of knowledge and watching all the children grow up and become adults and things along those lines. But there's a very unique dropping out effect. One of the things that we see a lot of questions of in the community itself through various Facebook groups or other panels and stuff that we're both either independently or both members of, are the long-term effects of craniosynostosis. We have a lot of medical background, but it means so much more for parents to hear from somebody who has been through what their child is going through and can look back and say, when I was 7, I went through this. When I was 15, I went through this. Here's something to look out for. Because even if we accept the fact that every Cranio child is different, there is still the simple fact of growing up. And so there's a huge gap in the understanding of long-term effects, at least in our opinion, when it comes to craniosynostosis, because there's such a high prevalence of families that are blessed with the opportunity to have only one surgery and then to be on the other side of all things involving cranio. We have seen scores of people that are so engaged in asking questions and getting information and passing on pictures and letting everybody know when their surgery is involved. And then within about 6 months to a year post-op, that person disappears from the group because they don't have anything else that's really affecting their life. Meanwhile, you have families coming in every single day, finding the group for the first time, asking a lot of the same questions, and we're quick to answer, but they have other questions as well. You also have families like ours that we're not going anywhere. We know that Zoe's facing surgery sometime in the next couple of years, another surgery. We have friends who we have met through these communities who have had children go through 8, 9, 10 surgeries and they're only 9 or 10 years old. So there's a huge gap in the long-term effects of cranio in ways that would be more meaningful than a medical document or a white paper or something along those lines that just says, hey, psychologists have observed XYZ in children with cranio at the age of 15. I'd rather hear it from that 15-year-old who went through cranio and had bicoronal and had 5 or 6 surgeries, and to hear what he or she has to say. So I think there's a huge gap there.
And part of it is also that the field within craniofacial patients is changing so much. There's so much new kind of experimenting with procedures that have had great results in other areas and are now being applied, such as the distractors that we have a video about. For a long time that's been used with the jawbone and with dental type surgeries, but now it's being applied with great success for cranio. And there's just so much growing and expanding within the medical community and within what they are able to do with these babies with their diagnosis. And so I feel like there's a lot that still needs to be talked about within the community of parents who have cranio as well. So an additional concern of mine is that a lot of our conversations, when I talk with, again, with moms, the vast majority of cranio parents, as far as their representation in Facebook groups, are moms. And the vast majority I've seen, the conversations are very specific and very pointed about one area, and they tend to have very helpful responses, but they're very short and they're very concise. And as somebody who's kind of been thrown into the community for about 5 years now, I've seen a lot more depth to what those responses could be including. And yes, you don't want to get full into depressive mode, like, oh, there are some bad things that could happen. And you also don't want to be, pretending like everything is sunshine and roses. And I feel like there's a healthy balance there where we can be providing informed opinions and informed understanding as we're encouraging each other along this road. So that's more within the cranio community of parents. I would love to see more of a depth of relationship where a larger story is able to be told, where it isn't maybe just, I'm going through this, can you help me with this, and then it's kind of a 10-second, 2-line answer, and then we don't really hear from them again. I would love to see more of the hardship, not as in a self-pity type of way, but just as in, this is hard, and it's okay for it to be hard. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be terrified that your child is on the table, We'll do our best not to make it bigger than it has to be, but you're also completely normal in being afraid, and things like that I feel like could really be a lot more helpful for new families just coming into the whole cranio world and just trying to understand what it is. I feel like we do these new families a disservice sometimes by being so short-sighted in our responses.
Simply put, 5 years ago, I made the decision to be the superhero that my daughter deserves. I took on the moniker of Cranio Dad very deliberately and with very great thought. I turned my blog into something that doesn't exist anywhere else, and I became the voice for the voiceless, and I was giving the point of view as a dad with a child with craniosynostosis. For 5 years, I have fought a very hard battle that most people don't even pay attention to, and that is to try to get some more recognition for all that dads do when it comes to craniosynostosis. The big, overwhelming, unbelievable fact is that 92% of all families who start out as a dual income family, when a child is born with craniosynostosis, immediately become a single income family, resting solely on the shoulders of the father. Statistically speaking, this is also including the fact where the dad makes less than the mom or has less tenure. So very quickly, right out of the gate, dads are becoming the income earners while the moms are staying at home taking care of the babies. And it often gets overlooked how much dads have to deal with and how much we have to stand silently and watch, these amazing groups spring up, and all in support of the moms. When I was in the NICU with our daughter when she was less than 2 days old, and I started Googling craniosynostosis, I was inundated with groups and web pages all devoted to supporting cranio moms, cranio grandmas, cranio aunts, cranio kids, and all of those are well and good. I never found anything to speak my voice, to talk about a dad. And for the longest time, I've been the only dad who is an active blogger about craniosynostosis. And for the most part, that's actually worldwide. And it's a bit shocking to me that we have found ourselves in such a state that a guy from Virginia who is having a daughter and is scared out of his mind turns his blog about fatherhood into being about craniosynostosis, and it's the only voice for dads. So I'm driving hard for there to be change in the years to come, to where other dads out there, like those of you right now watching this video, that are scared out of your minds and feel like you have nowhere to turn, will find yourselves at home in these communities, not just on Facebook, but everywhere else. So you'll be able to hear voices like yours talking about the things that affect us and that we worry about. So with that, I'm going to step off my soapbox about being a cranio dad. It is something that I've been dealing with for 5 years, and it's something that my fight is far from over with. And I think that as long as I have a voice, it's going to be spoken and it will be heard.
Those are a few of the major concerns that are within the Cranio community, and also kind of as a reflection of within our family, things that we've noticed that we would love to see improved.
I think that there's one more thing that we need to bring up.
Oh.
I think that the biggest thing that we need to do is to let our viewers know that the biggest thing that we have as a concern is that they watch these videos, that they reach out to other communities that are like ours, and they help gain, or they gain knowledge about craniosynostosis. That way when they see that family at the supermarket with a child with a helmet on his head, or they watch their kid at a playground and they see a child who looks a little bit different, that they'll have a better understanding what's going on, and they could be those open arms for parents who honestly don't often get the chance to say, it's so nice to finally have somebody who understands what I've been through.
Yes, and the diagnosis is fairly simple, but it's often something that you can't really say within the checkout line at the grocery store. And so just having these types of information kind of stowed away in your head, so that when that situation does come up, it does such a great deal of good within the world of cranio families. Just that just to be one that says, oh, I was hearing something about a CVR, have you heard about that? Or something that just kind of lends a hand and helps remind us that that we're not alone in it, and it's good for everybody to remember that.
So with that, dear viewers, we will end tonight's video. It's a little bit longer one, mostly because of my soapbox moment, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologize about it. But we do appreciate you guys stopping in every single day and learning a little bit more about Cranio. If you'd like to learn more about our 5 years of experience being Cranio parents, to our wonderful daughter who has bicoronal craniosynostosis, and our 2 adorable sons that don't have craniosynostosis, you can always head over to our blog at craniofamilyblog.com, and you'll find a wealth of information there. We're down to just a few more videos left. Thank you so much for hanging in there. It is things like this that really help the entire Cranio community, and you watching and liking these videos is a huge thing for all of us because it means that we're spreading some knowledge somewhere to somebody who either needs it or somebody who may need it down the line. So with that, we will see you guys tomorrow for another video in our Craniofacial Awareness Month video vlog series, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for stopping by.